I'm Francesco, and I work at Google as a technical account manager. I'll tell you what it means while we talk during this presentation. Thank you for being here today. And the topic of this presentation will be about the online advertising ecosystem. So it will be a very high-level introduction. Most of the things that I will tell you will be common sense, things that you know already. But I started this job about a year and a half ago, and I was really surprised to get to know all the details and how the different pieces interact together. So I would like to share those with you. I will make the session very interactive, so I'll start talking a little bit, interrupting you whenever you want, ask me questions. If I know the answer, I'll answer. If I don't know the answer, maybe we'll find it out together, or we can follow up on another session. So, what we'll talk about? We'll talk about the online advertising ecosystem. So let's say you have a website. You've built a website or a mobile application on Android, iOS, whatever, and you now want to monetize it. Why do you want to monetize it? Either because you want to make money out of it, so you want to invest time and make it your main activity, or because you want to return from the cost of servers, developments that you of the money that you have spent, and in general, in order to improve your site, your application, the service that you provide to users. So what options do you have? You can either make your app or your website paid, or you can provide a subscription, so that users can pay monthly for your service, or you can put advertising and get money from it. So what does advertising mean? I'll ask you one question. Who is the entity that puts money into advertising ecosystem? So if you put advertising on your sites, who is the person who will give you money? The advertisers, exactly. So the advertisers, what are the advertisers? The advertisers are companies that sell products. So for example, Procter & Gamble is an advertiser because they sell toothbrushes or laundry products, and they want to sell their products and make their products being known to people. So the advertisers put the money, and the money goes to you. You are the publisher. So the person who owns the app or the site and wants to get money out of it. And what is the other entity that interacts in this ecosystem? So why the advertisers would give money to the publishers? Because they want to reach the users. The users and the consumers, exactly. So you see here we have put three entities that are users, advertisers, and publishers. And all the three of them have different objectives, different intents. The objective of the advertisers is to reach the consumers, the users, and have them buy their product. So get interest, go out of your website, go into the store and buy the product. The objective of the publisher is to get the money from the advertiser. And how to get the money from advertisers? To acquiring more users. So the publisher wants to build a website that is good for the users so that advertisers will spend money on the website to get the users. And the advertisers want to have the return on investment, so want to have users buy, and the users want to have good quality content. So they want to use your site, they want to use your service. So you see, you have different objectives in the three entities, but how would you rank them? So if you, we have this ecosystem. Who is the most important entity of the three? You said the users, right? Because without the users, we cannot, of course. The advertisers wouldn't be interested in putting money, and the publishers wouldn't have anything to offer to anyone. Then, after the users, what would you put? Advertisers or publishers? Publishers, someone say, this is we don't have an answer to this. So it can be either publishers or advertisers. Of course, I would say publishers because I work with publishers. My job, now I'll explain it to you, is working with publishers, big Italian publishers, like big website or app owners. I'll make you an example, ilmeteo.it or the newspapers or other similar e-commerce sites or whatever, that put advertising on their site and get money out of it. I support them technically, day to day, to implement the Google advertising on their site. So if you're a publisher, so we were saying, sorry, that the objective of the users is to find high quality content. So we have different kind of advertisers that we could show to users. Do you know what kind of advertising we can show. So the easiest example is display advertising. So we show a picture in a site of a thing that is relevant for that user. In addition to pictures, what we could show to advertising? Where is advertising today online? Sorry? Video advertising, for example. So we show pre-roll on YouTube. Banners, yes, which can be display, or if not display, so if not images, what? Text, exactly. So when you search on Google, you would get text ads that are related to your search. So you're searching for an iPad, and you get an advertising that is for the iPad. So if you see that google.com page there, you would see search ads. And one thing, did you know that search ads can not only be found on Google, but also on other sites? Did you know that? In which site, for example? You have an example of an Italian site? News website. In news websites, you don't search. So you will not get those search ads that are relevant to what you're typing. For example, on subito.it, which is an e-commerce site where you would buy used things, if you search for an iPad, if you scroll the list, we can maybe have a look now, or maybe later. If you scroll the list, you will find in the end the Google ads. So the ads that are related to the search term that the user entered. Other things are video, display, and mobile. On mobile, you have, again, the search ads, you have the display ads, and you can have video ads as well. So there are a lot of different kind of ads. There are even more that I'm not talking to you now about. There were some audio ads some time ago where people would listen to audio streams and then get ads in between them. So if you're a publisher, what could you do? You have some space in your site, so you have your web page or your app, and you want to dedicate some space for the content, which would be here, and some space for the ad. So what would you do? Either you go to an advertiser directly. So I have a site, I go to P&G, I go in their office, and I tell, look, I have 1 million users who are visiting my website every day. So my site talks about soccer, football, for example. So my users may be interested in things related to that. And I will sell you this space, which is 300 pixel times 250 pixel for X amount of euros. What are the pros and cons of this approach? The pro is that you can negotiate the price directly with the advertiser. So you can show the value of your users. You can explain why you're convincing them to buy that piece of advertising, and you can get a better price. The con is that you need to hire some salesperson that goes to the advertiser and does the negotiation. So, of course, you have to pay the salary of this person, or you have to do it yourself, so you're investing time in doing that. But this is good. So newspapers, for example, do have a sales force, so people that go and sell advertising space for their the largest pages, so like the homepage or the homepage of the sports section, etc., because it's worth. So you pay some person and you get much higher value of your space and you earn more money. But you have some smaller spaces which are maybe not frequently visited pages, smaller articles, less important articles. In that case, it wouldn't be worth to have a person that goes and sell that very specific niche article to an advertiser, because it wouldn't be able to get much value out of that. So what you could do, either you don't show advertising, but then what was the point of creating that content if you're not monetizing it? Or you can go, so we have talked about direct sales, which were the first thing. You can go to ad networks. Ad networks are sort of intermediate people between the publisher and the advertiser. And the ad network buy a huge quantity of space on a page or an app from the publishers and sells it to the advertiser. So what does the ad network do? It goes to a lot of publishers and say, give me your remnant inventory, so your space that you have not sold directly. Maybe the publisher has sold this space for 5 euros CPM. What does CPM mean? It means cost per mille, so per 1,000 impressions. So every 1,000 users that see this space, the advertiser pays 5 euros. The publisher can then tell, look, I'll sell the remaining space for 1 euro CPM to the ad network. So the ad network gets the remaining space for much cheaper. And then goes to the advertiser and sells the same space in block because it aggregates more publishers. So publisher 1, publisher 2, publisher 3. So they have now a big inventory. It's not anymore remnant for them. It's a big inventory, like it was for the publisher in the beginning. And they sell it to the advertisers for 2 euros CPM. What does it mean? That, of course, the ad network makes money out of it. So this is another player in the industry. They make money out of the difference in the price that they sell the inventory versus what they buy it. What's the problem with this approach? This was, I'm going through history, basically. This is the beginning of the internet, then it evolved this way. The problem in this approach is that initially there was one ad network, then ad network 1, ad network 2, ad network 3, etc., and this paid 1, this paid 1.01, this 1.02, etc., So for the publisher, it was hard to know where to go. Also because maybe this ad network was selling ads to advertisers that were not as good as the first one. So maybe it pays more, but then the ads that it shows is a Sara Tommasi ad or a Belen ad, and then the publisher doesn't want to see those ads on their site. I'm making a joke here. So it may not only be the price. The publisher also cares about its branding, so the quality of the site. So after the ad networks, the ad exchanges came. The ad exchange is where a lot of ad networks can buy, and okay, it's pretty much this one, and can buy the impression that is coming. The impression is the page view, so the fact that the user is going into the page in real time. What does it mean? There is a Google product that is called Google Ad Exchange that does exactly this thing. So Google has reached agreements with several ad networks, and they built a technological system to buy the advertising space in real time. So what happens? When you go to a site, so you go to Corriere.it, for example, and if this site is using Google Ad Exchange, it will have put some Google code here in the page. That app calls Google Server. Google Server, in real time, while you're still loading the page in your browser, connects to the servers of ad networks 1, 2, 3, 100, asks them how much you're willing to pay this specific impression, knowing that this user is interested in sports, this user is 30 years old, is a male, etc., etc. So the ad network chooses because it has the offers from the advertisers, so they know this is a very good user for me, so I would pay 2 euros CPM. This is a bad user, so I will pay 0.50. And the highest price wins in real time. So at this point, the publisher doesn't have to deal directly with all the ad networks, but can deal only with the ad exchange, and has the option to control the price, so to get the highest value, but also to block the advertising that it doesn't want. So, of course, what Google does also scan the creative that the ad network sends. So the ad network says, I want to pay 1 euro, and the creative will be BMW creative. This one pays 1.01, and it will be a, I don't know, Decathlon creative. This one will pay 1.02, and it will be Sara Tommasi. So if the publisher has blocked this category, they will only make an auction between these ones. And this happens in real time. So within 100 milliseconds, Google servers reach to the ad network servers, and the ad networks reply. You know, one thing that I was really surprised about was that these companies build data centers close to Google data centers in order to reduce the network latency and being able to reply within 100 milliseconds with their bit. It's really something that shocks me and I like. Other things I've not mentioned a little bit more in detail. this auction is done as a second price auction. So each network says how much they are willing to pay, 1, 1.01, 2. But the winner is the highest price, but it pays the second price. So this one may have say, I want to pay 5 euros. This one is 1, this one is 1.01. So this one wins, assuming there are no blocks. But it pays only 1.02, so 1 cent more of the second one. Why we do this? This is a part of auction theories, basically. If the bidder pays only the second price, so the exact minimum he would have needed to beat the second price, he's incentivized to bid the real amount, the real value of the user. Otherwise, they would make calculations. They would say, well, but how much the others would be willing to pay for these impressions? So I need to bid 1 cent more of the others. Instead, this way, they say, well, I would pay 5 euros. So if someone else would pay 3 euros, then I would pay 3.01. So I can make the calculation only on the value I want to get from the users. I don't need to think about what the others make strategies and all those things. And this means that in the end, they will bid the maximum value that they wish to pay, and the publisher will get the most value out of the impression in the long term. There are other considerations to be made. The ad, of course, what is the objective of the advertiser? It's that then the user sees the ad and clicks on the ad, maybe. If it's an online service, maybe it even buys the thing. So if this is an ad of Media World, for example, the objective of Media World is that you click on the ad and then you buy the thing, actually, so that they get the money back. Or if it's a branding site, so like BMW, of course, you wouldn't buy a car online. But the objective there is just that you maybe get to the site, you stay at least some time, or you subscribe to the newsletter, or whatever, similar things. So the objective also, the advertiser will regulate the pricing, so the amounts they want to spend, according to what their goal is. And according to how much the users will click and convert, so buy the actual product in the end. So maybe the advertiser doesn't know exactly if that user will convert or not. So what does the Google Ad Exchange does? There's also this thing. They analyze the landing page of the ad. So you click on the ad and you end on bmw.com/some car. And they analyze how much this page is relevant for the user, because Google knows that with the cookie of the user its interest, and to the content of the page. And gives a quality to this. So a quality score. And Google multiplies the bid of the advertiser times the quality score. So if there is a landing page which has a higher quality score, but a lower bid, it may still win because it's more interesting for the user. And you would say, but then Google is losing money and the publisher is losing money. What's the point? If the advertiser thinks that the user is interested, why don't have him pay? Because what would happen in the end? The user will see this ad. He will click on it, while if he would have seen this ad, he wouldn't have clicked on it. Then he will convert. So the advertisers will see, look, I'm buying on Google, I'm getting a lot of return on investment. I just spent $1 and I'm getting a lot of users buying my product. So next year I will spend 2 euros instead of 1 euro. So this is a long-term strategy that allows to increase, in reality, the value for the publisher and for the advertisers and for the users as well, because they get things that are together. So one thing that I learned from going through all this knowledge, all this study, is basically that it's not important only the short-term interest of making money of advertisers or publishers or users, but it's important the long-term health of the ecosystem. So whenever also you build a product, you build an app or you build a site, the first thing you need to care is about your users. Then you can care about monetization, promotion, and all those things. But the first thing is really to care about the users, because you could get a short-term advantage if you wouldn't care about users, if you would bombard them with advertising, or if you would do some bad behaviors to induce the users into click into advertising. But that would last a month, a week, a day, something like that. It would not last for years, so you could not make a living out of it. So it's important really to focus on the users. Do you have any specific question on this first introduction? Well, all things were common sense, but wanted to get your feedback if something was new, something was too easy. Okay, maybe later. So now I would like to go a little bit into the details of some technical details of the Google SDK for mobile ads. In my work, I work with publishers, which are mainly websites publishers, but some of them are mobile app publishers, either because they have a website and they turn it into a mobile app, like in Meteo, for example, or some others because they are pure app developers, so they develop only an app. There are integrating ads in your app is really, really easy. So let's talk about the Ads SDK, but on a website SDK, it's pretty much the same thing. On a website, you just have to integrate some piece of JavaScript code that then calls Google server and shows the ad. In the mobile Ads SDK, you need to reference, I'll go with the Android SDK, of course, because I work for Google, so I need to talk about the Android SDK. You need to reference the Google Play Services library into your project. You know the new devices, most of them ship with the Google Play Services, and you need to reference this Google Play Services library in your project and declare the network permissions to allow the app to access the internet if it's not already doing so. So I hope you can see, it's a little bit small, but this is the code needed to integrate your app into, your advertising into your app. You basically have to declare some space, which is called an ad view. You need to specify just two things. One is the size that you want to show, so the number of pixels. The most common formats on mobile are 320 pixels times 50, which looks like this. In a lot of apps, you would have seen this. And there are other formats that we will see now. So you need to specify this size, because then Google will do this option in real time, specifying the advertisers what size they will get, what space they will get. And then you need to specify an ad unit ID. What is an ad unit ID? An ad unit ID is what associates that space to you, so that Google then pays you for that money. You need to create an account on AdMob, in this example, and you will get a publisher ID. Within AdMob, in the UI, you will be able to create one ad unit per each of your app, or per each section of your app, or it depends on how you want to segment your inventory. There, you specify which ad unit you're willing to use, so that then you, in reporting, can see how that ad unit is going. You insert the ad unit into your layout. In this case, it's a linear layout, so I get the layout and I position the ad unit there. And then I make the ad request. Here, I'm making some code to flag Google that this is a test request, because I'm testing on my device, so I don't want advertisers to pay. Again, why we're saying that? Because advertisers then would not spend on your app if they see a lot of test requests. Because they would, a lot of non-test requests, which in reality are test requests. Because you would not be interested in buying that thing, so you would not click on the ad, or you would click and not convert, and the advertisers would not get return on investment. If you specify test, you can test freely, because the advertisers would not pay, and it would not be hard. And then you make the ad request. Your app then exchanges data with the Google service and shows the creative on the app. You can, of course, specify some things to destroy the ad view when it's not anymore needed, so when the app is closed, etc., etc. These are the sizes that we were talking about, 320 times 50, 300 times 250. Of course, you can put whatever size you want, but these are the sizes that are where there is more pressure in the market, so where advertisers are more willing to spend money. The 300 times 50 is the most used one, actually. So there you would get a lot of money from the advertisers. In the other sizes, you will get much less. And then you have interstitials. Interstitials are very powerful. And now I'll ask you one question. How many of you prefer, you will have seen interstitials in the apps, prefer interstitials versus banner? Because there are some studies that say that users prefer interstitials because they do not have the banner constantly in their face, but they only have interstitial at some specific point, so when they go from one level to the other, or when they're moving from one function to the other, so they prefer that option. Some other users find it extremely invasive on the other hand, so they prefer banners. So I'll ask you maybe, how many of you prefer interstitials over banners?
There is one, okay.
Yeah. Too many, okay, good. Well, but it's less, so I would say 20% pretty much from the hands that I've seen. So most of you prefer banners over interstitials because the interstitial interrupt your flow. But again, this highly depends on your app. So for example, there are card apps. We have some partners that develop card apps like Scopa, Briscoe, or other games. And interstitials are sometimes favored because they appear only at the end of the game. So while you play, you click on the screen in different places, you're not interrupted. When you finish the game, so you've already gotten your service, then you get an interstitial. And they prefer these over banners. So the publishers then monetize better after removing banners and putting interstitial. So it depends a lot on end users. One suggestion that I can give you is whenever you do some site app or whatever, not only in advertising, but know your users. So put an analytics solution, it can be Google, it can be another one, and segment your users, try to understand their behavior, try to understand what are the parts of the app that are most easily accessible, the ones that are most difficult to access, and then basing on that target your advertising or your choices. So requesting an interstitial is a little bit different. You make an ad request, which is asynchronous, so you don't get immediately the answer. And then when the ad request is completed, you get a callback. So you've basically registered, you have a listener here. And once the interstitial is loaded, then you can decide to show it immediately, or you can load it before so that you don't have then to wait for the app to make the ad request. This is useful because while the user is finishing the game, you can preload the interstitial and then only show it when it's available. Mediation, it's another feature of AdMob. There are, while in the display space or even in the search space, there are not many players, let's say, so not many ad exchanges that do these things. In the mobile space, the market is much more fragmented. So if you use only AdMob, even if I'm from Google, I have to tell you, you would not get the maximum money you could get out of your impressions. So in mobile, solutions like mediations have been developed. What is a mediation? Basically, you would call more than one ad network. So there are some ad networks which go in real time, and you call AdMob, and AdMob takes care of it, as we have said before. But there are some ad networks who refused to go through this because they have so much power that it's not worth for them to go this because publishers would integrate directly the ad network. So in mobile, this is very seen, this problem. So you can put, in addition to the Google call, you can put some other ad networks below or above it. So this is called mediation. Basically, you specify within the AdMob UI, I want to call this ad network first, then I want to call AdMob, then I want to call this other ad network third. And the app will make the call first to the first ad network, then to the second ad network, then to the third ad network, if the network has served or not. So you would get the maximum fill. Fill means percentage of times that your request has turned into an ad. Okay, how to implement it? You need to add, in order to add mediation, you need to add more SDKs, because you would need the SDKs of the other ad networks. So it's a little bit more complicated, but it's pretty easy once you've integrated the SDK to define it in the UI of AdMob. Okay, that is pretty much the thing. Other things you can do in AdMob are reviewing the ads that have been showing on your app. So you would see really the creatives and you can block them one by one. So you have this control. You can also, AdMob is an integrated solution also to promote your app. So if you want to show advertising for your apps into other apps, you could do it by AdMob. Of course, you would pay for that. One thing that I would like to tell you also is the following. Web and app are two completely different worlds. So there are many traditional publishers in Italy and elsewhere that develop apps that are identical to their mobile site. I would advise against that because the pattern through which the user browses the app is completely different from what the user does on the web. So really, if you're a pure app developer, then of course you know all these things. You're building an app first. If you are a web developer and you're willing to turn your service into an app, then think carefully about how to build your app. So don't think, while in websites, the things are much more standard, so you can really focus on monetizing, and I mean, there are a lot of tools to build high-quality content and high-quality sites out of the box without too much investment. In apps, it's completely different, so take time to analyze the behavior of your users, to follow the design guidelines, so make apps that look like the Android apps, the Google apps in Android, and the Apple apps in iOS. Don't do the same layout in iOS and Android. They follow different principles. There are different buttons in the UI. The menu has to be in one place in Android and in another place in iOS. So read through the Play or App Store guidelines and follow them. Go through the developer console, follow the suggestions. And then advertising and monetization will come. So first focus on building a high-quality app. I'm pretty much done, so I think if you want to ask me questions, I'll ask you a favor as well. If you could scan that QR code, there is a site where there is a question whether you liked the presentation or not, and what could we improve and what you liked especially. So it would be great if you can provide me feedback. Meanwhile, ask me questions. Yeah. Sorry?
Price is €1 for...
Yeah, very good point, very good point. Your colleague asked, what's your name? Jess. Okay. He asked if the advertisers pay just because the ad is visualized, so it's shown on the page, or when the ad is clicked. This is a very, very important question. So there are different pricing models. CPM is one pricing model. So this is mainly used by branding advertisers like P&G or BMW or places where you wouldn't buy the thing on the internet, but you would buy the thing in the store. So they care about the impression. Like Coca-Cola, for example, cares that you see the ad a lot of times and the brand enters into your head. So they pay per impression. They don't pay per click. There are other kind of advertisers which pay, for example, Booking.com or travels, e-commerce sites where you buy things online that pay per click. So they put CPC. They say, I want to spend €1 per click. And how do they compete together? Because then the auction is unique. Google predicts the click-through rate, so CTR, of this ad, basing on the user's interest, and it will say, the CTR will be 20%, so I expect that 1 out of 5 users will click on it. Then multiplying CTR times CPC makes a number, which is 0.20 in that case. I'm missing some divided by 1,000, but let's think that it is the right division. And then it will compare this one with this one. And then it will make a unique auction. Of course, Google is absorbing the risk here, because if the user doesn't click, then the advertiser doesn't pay, but Google has promised €1 CPM to the publisher, so Google will give the money to the publisher. Then the second time the user will click, so Google will get €1, but will only pay 0.20 to the publisher because it's paying CPM. So basically, the prediction of the click-through rate here is the important thing. There are even different other models. For example, on video ads, where on YouTube you know that there is the skip ad button. So when you're seeing a video, you can skip an ad. That is called CPV. So the advertiser pays only per view. So if the user either reaches 30 seconds of the ad or the end of the ad if it's shorter than 30 seconds, then the advertiser pays. If the user skips the ad, the advertiser doesn't pay, but the publisher gets the money. So again, here, Google has to predict the VTR, so the video through rate. Of course, the first time a video ad is shown, the video through rate prediction will be bad. But after it is shown 1,000,000 times, then the algorithm is pretty accurate. So there is really then no difference in the end. There are other options, which are, again, to encourage advertisers to get more value, which are CPA, cost per acquisition, which means that the advertiser will place in the landing page, so here you click and you get into bmw.com. In the bmw.com site, they put a pixel in the page where you subscribe to the newsletter, for example, if that's their objective, that calls Google and tells, hey, these users who had previously clicked on the ad has converted, so has really subscribed to my conversion. And at that point in time, BMW pays. Then BMW decides, I want a cost per acquisition which is 10 euros, because once a user has subscribed to the newsletter, will buy my car most probably within a month or something like that. So they pay this. Google predicts what's the percentage of users that will acquire, so that will convert, and then make the conversion and make a unique auction that is CPM. So the publisher is paid CPM, but the advertisers can choose different models. Yep. Yeah. No, this is a very, very important question. AD blocker. You know, on Chrome, you can, or Firefox, Internet Explorer, you can install ad blockers. Ad blockers are a plugin which detects the network calls that are made by the browser. And since all these calls for advertising are made to a domain which is either google.com or doubleclick.com, Google Ads.doubleclick.net, things like this, they block all these domains. And so the ad request wouldn't go through, and the ads would not be shown on the users. You would see the site ads free. What happens? Google server is not called, so the auction doesn't happen. Google doesn't know that the user went to that site, and the publisher doesn't get any money. The advertiser doesn't spend, the user doesn't see ads, and the publisher doesn't get any money. Now, there is a lot of discussion regarding this. Are these good guys or bad guys, in the sense? The internet is free. Most of the websites are free thanks to advertising. But on the other hand, there are websites who put a lot of advertising. Really, the users cannot browse them. And they're really cash cows rather than providing service to users. So it's a little bit in between the answer. I think that if ad blockers are popular, it's popular. It's still 1% of the users, but still, it's a good number. I have an ad blocker. So in my home computer, not the work one. It's because users got annoyed of ads. So probably all these companies that are working in advertising are doing too much. But on the other hand, there are sites that do monetize well, that do things in a good way for users. So some websites are counteracting this thing by not showing the content. So you could detect if there is an ad blocker, because you can make some JavaScript call to understand if a network call to Google server or to another network server would go through or not. And you can understand in the page if the ad blocker is there or not. So some sites are not showing the content, are showing a banner saying, look, we have detected that you have an ad blocker, so we want to make money out of it because we have to pay the journalists, we have to pay the servers, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to see our website, please disable the ad blockers. Some other sites are not doing this, are simply giving the content for free, basically, to the users who have an ad blocker because they are 1% of the users, so not really much. And maybe they also think there's some psychology around this. Maybe if a user disabled ads, is a user who is really not interested into ads. So the advertisers would have paid much less. So probably the CPM that I would get, if my average CPM is €1, from those users, I would get 0.50 CPM. So it's 1%, but in reality, it's 0.5% of my revenue. So I accept that there are these users, and I don't do anything about that. And I think of it as part of the ecosystem. So it's one thing that is really important to care about. The numbers, as of now, are still not too much, so not so many users do have ad blockers. Also, on mobile is a little bit more complicated. There are some solutions, but do not quite work. as on desktop. So we need to see. It will be a thing to consider. I think there will be also in the future other options, alternative to advertising. Advertising is good till when the users get the service they want and get advertising that is not invasive and it is relevant to what they need. So actually it provides a service. If we don't go into that direction, then advertising will fail and we'll need to find another way to keep the internet free or move to a different model where users pay X amount of money each month to subscribe to their services. So there's not an answer. As I've told you, there are different things to consider and different approaches that publishers have taken. It's still at the beginning, so we'll see how it will evolve. Yeah. Yep. 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 So hybrid applications, for those of you who don't know, are apps that have a web view within it that connects to a website and it shows the HTML of the site on the screen. So basically you're not developing an app in Java, in Android, or in C++, if it's iOS, whatever, but you just make a link to a site. So you could have two options. One is putting the advertising on the site, so you would use the web SDKs and show the ads there. Or you could make native calls, so via the SDK, and reserve just a smaller part of the screen to the web view, and then the rest for the ad view. There are different answers to this. This is the technical answer. The real answer is the following. In the case of Google SDK, there are some policies to be respected by publishers, and one of them is to monetize the apps through the mobile ads SDK. So if you have a web view, you need to put the web view smaller, don't put advertising in the site, in the HTML, but then call a banner outside of the web view via the mobile ads SDK. There are some other ad networks which don't do the same thing, so which allow monetization of hybrid apps via web SDKs. The rationale behind Google's decision is that via the SDK, Google can gather more information about the user and about the position in the app where the ad is. So it can provide more value to the advertisers, and it can detect better if the user clicked accidentally or if it was intentional. So Google only allows the use of the mobile ads SDK, even for hybrid apps. So in the hybrid app, you would have to put a smaller screen for the app, for the web view, and then put the ad via the SDK. Yep. Yep. If the mobile app is? For Retina? Yep. Yep, yep. So, in addition to the size, there is also the concept of density, which is a multiplier, which is 1, 1.5, or 2, by which you multiply the size in case of screens of a different layout. So a 300 times 250 in a display with a screen size, with a screen density of 2x would be a 600 times 500. It would be multiplied by 2. And the thing would be done automatically by the SDK. So you would request a 300 times 250, but the app will show in reality a 600 by 500 pixels, and it will fill the space anyways. So the SDK will detect the density of the device and will show an ad that is larger. Yep. Okay. Thank you, guys, for being here.